Thank you for listening to episode 6 of the Kindness Rebellion. In this episode, I have a conversation with Mariah Goodale, a friend I have not seen in a very long time. We have a fantastic conversation about science, philosophy, and other theoretical aspects of the universe. She's currently studying biology at the University of Utah and also works at the hospital there. We talk about life and death and other really deep conversations that I'm really excited for you to hear about. Please like or share the podcast or do whatever it is that you do to show me that you like it. Thanks again. Awesome. For real.
Now it begins.
Yeah, now it begins.
Okay, cool.
Now we're beginning.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on this. I
of
really
course.
appreciate it. It was super fun to just see you post something that was really deep and philosophical and also engage with me on it.
Yeah.
If you actually because that's kind of what started you even wanting to come on the podcast at all.
Yeah, true.
Do you want to just start there?
From my post that I made?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Dawkins quote and everything.
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember the Dawkins quote.
Don't worry. No, you have to have it word for word, otherwise.
Yeah, otherwise I'm a liar.
Yeah.
So, we'll just paraphrase, I guess.
Okay.
So it was about the Library of Babel. Mm-hmm. And it's like this fun thing for hard thinkers to just explore your mind and a philosophical entity. So it's a library, theoretically.
Yes.
And if you were to walk into this library, there's infinite number of books. Mm-hmm. And the books are comprised of infinite number of combinations of our alphabet, including commas, spaces, punctuation, all of that is included. And if this were to actually exist, then most of the books would just be gibberish.
Yeah, okay.
Because not every combination is going to make sense.
Yeah, or have meaning.
Right. But on the other end of that, you could eventually find your book, the book of your life.
Oh.
Because with infinite combinations of words and numbers and punctuation, there's obviously going to be the book of your life.
Okay.
Step by step. And not only would there be the book of your life, there would be different timelines of the book of your life. So if you were to drink water instead of milk, that would be a different book.
Oh my God.
So every choice you make would also be a different book.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And is it because I Googled it essentially.
Yeah.
And I came across a digital library that was created to kind of try and, create that, I guess.
Yeah.
So is it pretty much just trying to simulate a multiverse or something like that?
Yeah, it's kind of exploring deep concepts through limitless possibilities.
Oh my God.
So if everything's possible, then you can everything is real.
Everything is real. I think that was what was so interesting about it to me, just from the very little bit of research I did on it. Is I went into that little digital library and I typed in "tail of a dragon" or something like that, and it was your search yielded 4,000 results or something like that. But I didn't think of it as eventually you'd come up with the story of your life in infinite number of scenarios or whatever. It makes me think of that. You ever heard that saying is if you gave, a million monkeys typewriters and they just pounded on it for a billion years, eventually they'd, create the universe or create Shakespeare or something like that. That's almost what it sounds like to me.
It's exactly like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I thought what was kind of cool about it is that you made a little comment that said our lives are essentially arbitrary.
Yeah.
Or that there's so many magnitudes of possibilities that include everything else but our life that it's almost I can see how it makes us feel insignificant.
Yeah.
So that's where I really found it interesting, because that was something that I actually really, I kind of struggled with. I had hit this point specifically after leaving Mormonism where I was okay, so obviously this curated and whatever I'd call it, this curated story of the universe and our lives is kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely obviously nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about.
Right.
So I kind of just did a full overcorrection. I was just like, oh, like everything is just mechanical, nothing matters. And it kind of reached this point. I was like, oh, I'm wholly insignificant.
Yeah.
You know? And so I kind of liked your analysis on that and saying how our lives are kind of arbitrary. And I wanted to kind of see what you meant by that and what you think about that.
Yeah. So it's a funny thought for me because it actually gives me peace knowing that I'm arbitrary.
Yeah.
Because then I don't owe anything to anybody except for myself.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people get caught up in like, what's my purpose here? What do I need to like focus on in my life? And I've come to the conclusion that the only thing that matters is what you think matters. Because why the fuck else would anybody else's opinion matter?
Yeah.
You know, because your existence is how you perceive it. So as long as you're having a good time pursuing life, love, pursuit of happiness, you know, all that kind of thing, then your existence was complete.
Okay.
Because it's all about experience.
I like that because I've sort of started to see where, because like I was saying, I was sort of positioned on either absolutely nothing matters or everything in my experience matters.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of just like swapping between the two rather than accepting that kind of they're both happening at the same time.
They do. They're
right?
simultaneous for sure.
Yeah. And I like that because, I mean, because I had a conversation with someone one time where I was like, do you believe that there is any overarching meaning at all? Like, do you think that there is meaning to the universe, meaning to our lives at all? Or sorry, existence at all? And they're sort of like, no, but we create meaning.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. That's how I feel too, because especially from a biology standpoint, the more I've learned about biology, the more I realize none of us matter.
Yeah. In a good way?
Yeah, in a great way, because I took this ecology class recently, which is basically about saving species from going extinct.
Yeah.
And at the end of the class, after learning about global warming and like overfishing and all the things that how we're ruining the earth,
yeah,
I asked my instructor, I was like, why do we care? Because technically every species overindulges in some aspect.
Yeah.
And we overindulge in a ton of aspects. And the end result is we go extinct. And that's just seems fair to me.
Yeah. I think that...
Why do we care that we keep it going?
Okay, I think that's a really good analysis there. Because, like, you're right. I think we try to say, like, humans have to, like, oh, we're destroying the earth, and, like, that means we're destroying the universe almost, just because we're destroying our own experience of the world. But you're right. Essentially, a lot of these species, like, will devour and consume the whatever environment they're in until they go extinct because they have no resources left. I think where I differ, though, is I think humans are super unique in the sense that we actually have the ability to care and have like compassion for our environment. And specifically through my experience on mushrooms, to feel like a part of the environment.
Yeah.
I think that's something weird that's happened is we kind of evolved in a way that we felt separate from nature.
Yeah.
And like we're here to conquer nature when... Whoa, Jesus
Yeah, that's the
Christ.
weirdest bug I have ever seen in my entire life.
God.
Look at its ass. It's like...
It's Satan. Oh my God.
That was the weirdest bug I've ever seen. Thank God it left us alone.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I've never felt so away from nature than in that moment.
Oh, that's so funny. That ties right into it, right?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, and I think that there is something to be said for that, though, because we came out of nature. We evolved from nature, right? And all of the things that we think are completely separate from nature, like this phone and like these clothes, we sourced from nature.
Yeah.
So I think humans have a very unique position and standing where we actually sort of are custodians of this earth, where I think we have the capability to, instead of consuming and just annihilating the earth for our own individual gain, we actually have the capabilities of like loving the earth and seeing it as a part of ourselves that we can maintain and exist on for a longer period of time.
Well, that's the thing that's funny for me is it's funny because people want to side with humanity and with nature. And I'm very much just on the side of inevitability. And I care about just the evolution of time. Like, who cares if we're still here after? Maybe we will annihilate the earth and then new species form from it. That's just the story of the world. So I don't mind if we destroy it, because it's just a new chapter of the story of the universe.
Okay. And there's definitely there's a lot of wisdom in that, because even if we somehow build utopia and save the earth and learn to live in complete harmony with it, there could be events in the universe that just annihilate Earth. Just explode this rock that we're on.
True.
So I think there's value in that. This is where I kind of get to the question of meaning again.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I'm sitting here whatever happens, and I don't care if this Earth that I love gets destroyed, because it's probably going to get destroyed anyways. For me, it's like a quick spiral down to nihilism, where I'm just like, well, why don't I just blow my brains out here, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how do you mitigate that? Do you even feel that way, or is it just kind of do you sort of already have a peace with that, where you can say it's okay?
Yeah, I found peace in the limited amount of time of perceiving our reality. So I believe that when we die, maybe our reality is going to be completely different. Maybe we're not even conscious. Who really cares? Can I change it? No. So why should I worry about it? You just have to make peace with the fact that it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
And if the world gets destroyed, it's honestly not on me.
Yeah. That's true. You're not the one pushing the big red button, right?
I'm just living. I'm having a good time here. I'm not getting caught up in the dumb shit that people say matters that I don't care about. And honestly, I put my meaning in more than just the earth. I put my meaning in the energy of the universe. That's way more important than this dumb rock we're floating on behind the sun. That's stupid. I think there's so much more to it, and there's so much more we don't understand, and the fact that we think we know anything at all is laughable.
That's a good point. We really do have such a very limited knowledge. And I even think that there's a lot of things that we can also never know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I can see what you're saying. There's this strong affinity for me to this little rock behind the sun.
That's okay.
You know?
There should be.
I think so too. But because, I don't know, it actively harms me in ways to see us just consuming in ways that is actively destroying the planet, when we can be better.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and especially when I look at what our systems are doing, specifically in the destruction of the earth, it's not we're destroying the earth to actually better humanity. I think we're actually feeding the most negative aspects of humanity. Greed, selfishness,
money.
Yeah.
Money,
and
man.
just excessive consumption to the point that we're just really trying to distract ourselves from this awful feeling of alienation and doom. Yeah. But what I've found is being in nature and learning to love this planet has helped me feel I'm a part of something.
Yeah.
I can make my actions matter, and that has significant meaning for me, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to see that, value that, and then hopefully build a world where people are not in a state of crisis and stuff, because we're pretty lucky here in America.
Yeah, true.
In certain aspects, right? And then there's other people in part of the world that are just, complete, absolute poverty, just destitute
or
and things like
controlled, like Cuba.
Or
where
controlled,
they don't even have control where they live.
Exactly, yeah. So there's definitely things I think that we can just do as a world together to be better. And while I totally understand the viewpoint of we're a teeny tiny rock in an ever-expanding vacuum.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely
that was a good description.
Nothing matters. Yes, exactly. So, but we also have, because we keep oscillating between everything is so big and nothing matters to our lives are the only thing that matters, right? So I think there's ways that we can slowly improve that.
Yeah.
And find meaning enough to make positive changes in our lives.
Oh,
right?
for sure. Yeah, and I think even with my standpoint of who cares if the world burns?
Yeah.
I still find myself getting eco products and reducing my consumption, because it does feel good to care.
Yeah.
And it feels good to feel like you contributed to something better. So yeah, I still have, and I'm a biologist. Of course, I care about the species.
Exactly,
here. I love
right?
them. They're great. They're
You're
fun to learn
fascinated
about.
by it. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it. So yeah, it's sad the polar bears are dying, but that's evolution.
That's interesting. It's I feel I do feel like humans as a species have to bear more responsibility than just like, oh, it's evolution. You know what I mean? Specifically with the polar bears, I guess. Just like where we're like, you know, actively creating so much carbon emissions, melting the ice caps and doing all that shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess this is where my spiel often gets overused, and I don't want to like dive into it too much, but like our capitalist society is really not concerned with preserving anything other than capital and you know, consumption and greed.
It's
and
true.
So that's where I'm like, we can choose to preserve better things. We can choose to preserve things like kindness, our environment, like our fucking food and water sources, making sure we can actually have
the
things.
water, you're right.
Yeah. But in that vein, I think it's healthy to not be like in an absolute state of panic, like, oh my God, the world is on fire, like everything is bad. I'm constantly anxious about all the shit that I cannot do anything about.
Yeah.
Because whatever will happen, happens, right?
Yeah.
This guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Terrence McKenna, but he said this thing, and he's like, people often find it hard to determine whether I'm an optimist or a pessimist. And he says he's the biggest optimist you'll ever meet, because he's like, I don't think that anything wrong has happened. I don't think anything wrong is happening, and whatever will happen will happen.
Oh my God, I love him.
Yes. There's just a quiet like solitude of just like,
it's basking in the
all
chaos.
happening. Yes.
It's basking in the chaos. That's what I live by.
Okay.
Bask in the chaos. Because
that's awesome.
it's all you can do. Like, shit's gonna happen around you. If we run out of water, it's what's inevitable.
Then we have to deal with it, right?
And you just have to bask and find your own happiness with whatever's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's how I like to look at it. And of course, you can make changes to make things better and help so that you can have water for longer.
Yeah. And like, there's really only certain things we can focus on, right? Like, it's like, okay, so we got to make sure everyone's got food, water, and shelter.
Yeah.
And then some other crazy things could happen that, you know, we just have to bask in that chaos.
Yeah.
There's this other guy I'm obsessed with, Russell Brand, and he says that we have to have like a relationship with chaos. And I like that you said that you're basking in the chaos, because like too much of our society is terrified of disorder. It's like, no, it's everything's got to be controlled and by the book, and like we just have to try and micromanage everything. But I think we do have to learn how to bask in the chaos and to like build a relationship with chaos so that we can actually exist. And I guess that really comes to being able to live in the present moment, right? Instead of constantly fearing about the future and ruminating on the past.
Well, it's interesting that you said about like order, because it's actually unique to higher level thinking things. Not even that, like termites, for instance, also value order. But the natural course of the universe is actually disorder. That's why your hair gets tangled. That's why your necklaces get messed up. I don't know a guy reference. Your clothes. I don't know.
Right? A guy is disorder. Like, I'm just pure chaos embodied right now. Okay.
Yeah, but humans have made it like our mission to completely organize the universe. And really, it's entropy. It's funny because chemistry relies on entropy. Disorder, because things decompose, they degrade, and then they react. I don't know. It's just interesting how you brought up order.
There's really too many variables for us to constantly try and meticulously line up.
Well, it's always going to go back to disorder. Always. Because that's what the universe demands.
And I wonder what our fascination with order is. I kind of think it's a psychological thing. There's this weird thing that happens in human psychology where an event happens and we have to say, I like that or I dislike that. And so if we like it, we're like, okay, I want to make things more like that. I'm going to curate everything and build it up. Okay, it's got to stay like this. If I dislike it, I got to do whatever I can to just ignore it or like fight it or whatever. When there is no like or dislike they're just events. They're just things happening that we're placing meaning onto in terms of our like and dislike. And knowing that has been actually really, really helpful, because anytime something crops up that feels like a problem to me, I'm actually just say like, oh, this is just an event. This is something that's happening to me, and I can actually experience it and feel like a sort of calmness instead of like, oh shit, I gotta hurry and fix everything and immediately be anxious. So I think that's really valuable.
That reminds me of, have you seen What About Bob?
Yes.
Oh my God, that reminds me of when the therapist is like, when Bob's like, they're just temporarily disconnected, like on the phone. Like he creates this metaphor to feel better.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in so long. You'll have to remind me of this scene.
It's really funny. It's funny. I don't remember the exact quote, but you're just going to have to watch it. I'm a liar, obviously. Don't listen to me. It was just the way you were explaining it. It sounded like when he's like, this person's just temporarily disconnected. It's really good.
It's what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming he's just referring to a situation of like pure anxiety and intensity where you just have to be like, okay, I'm done with that. I can't engage with that right now. Yeah, exactly. So it's super valuable, and I am kind of curious as to why we're so fixated on order when, like you said, everything's chaos.
Well, it's interesting because what you said about likes and dislikes, and how when you're on shrooms you feel connected to the earth. When I do shrooms, I don't like or dislike anything. I see everything just for what it is instead of how I feel about it.
That's such a peaceful feeling.
It's the best. It's the best, because then someone's like, oh yeah, yellow's cool, and I'm like, yeah, it can be.
It can be. I love that. Yes. Oh, I love that so much.
Sure.
It can be. Just like,
that's how you feel about
whatever
it.
you want, man.
Exactly.
It's awesome because like when I had a trip with my cousin for his first time.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of it, he was just like so afraid of everything. Like he would see trees outside, and they're like, "Oh my god, the trees are scary." And I'm like, "Why? Why are they scary?" And he's like, I don't know, they're just scary. And I was like, you're thinking they're going to attack you right now.
Yeah.
But after a point, he like kind of just, the switch flipped, and he's like, oh. He's like, I kind of feel like when in Snow White, when she's running through the forest and all the trees look scary.
Yeah.
But then after I flip the switch on shrooms, I just see the tree hanging there with a piece of her clothing. And it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
It just is. It's not trying to attack her or anything.
Yeah.
And, I think about that a lot.
That's genius.
Yeah. Because anytime we're really terrified of anything, we're really just like, I feel threatened. Like, this is going to hurt me. And it's just sitting there. It's just existing. It's just being. It's been something that's really good for me because I've always been a super anxious person. And I was finally able to, like, relinquish that and just say, okay, everything just is. I can just deal with things in the moment. As long as no one's actually stabbing me, like, I'm probably fine.
That's true. Yeah, it's that I have that same thought process too. I'm also very anxious, and I have a little bit of OCD. So I want things to be like how I want them to be.
Yeah,
you know,
it's that order.
Yeah, or I'll just think about something and I have to fix it, and so I'm like, well. That's why I like doing shrooms so much, because it makes me realize that things are fine where they are and how they are.
Yes.
And I don't have to fix it, because why is my way better? Yeah,
exactly. Oh, that's the key that people need to realize, right? Yeah. Otherwise, they're just... Because that's just a lot of ego-driven.
It is ego-driven.
That's what mushrooms are good for. It's just killing that ego.
They're grounding.
Yes. I'm really glad that you have done mushrooms and that they've been well for you.
Oh my God,
I'm really trying with this podcast to change how people see illicit drugs, specifically mushrooms, just because it's been so healing in my life.
Yeah.
And I've seen how it's healing in other people's lives. But the problem is that it's just really easy to propagate like scary stories about mushrooms. And we grew up in a time when our government and the culture was just absolutely terrified of these substances that they really just knew nothing about.
Reefer madness.
Yeah, exactly, right? And especially when you start to realize that it was all just trying to fight a counterculture and impose will on people. Yeah. And then imprison.
It's manipulation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when people realize, like, oh, everyone should just have the opportunity to decide what goes into their body and what that does to them, we're going to end up a lot better as a species and as a people.
Well, I think we should look at drugs as how they affect society. It comes back to the Constitution, honestly, where you can't impede yourself on other people's rights.
Yeah.
So if you're doing heroin and you find yourself in the middle of the road, like playing out a Broadway show, then that should probably be illegal. But mushrooms, I don't know anybody who wants to be out around in a huge public place making a scene. If anything, you want the opposite. You want to be like safe by yourself, reflective. You know, it's actually scary to have people come up to you. So
I think it is as well in like a very therapeutic and healing setting. However, it is very culturally like used as like for raves and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
I have
a party
no
drug.
idea how people do that. I have no idea how people can just take some mushrooms and be like, all right, let's go dance and like vibe, because it's just like you're right. It's very reflective and kind of just overwhelming, and you're just like, I need to figure out what's going on in my head right now.
Well, that's why you take shrooms, is to figure out what's going on in your head. People take shrooms to get what they want. And if they want to party, they're going to get that.
That's a good point.
And they'll take Molly, too.
Yeah. All the drugs.
All the drugs. And then shrooms just gives you cool hallucinations while you're tripping on Molly.
I guess that's the case, right?
You get what you want, and shrooms gives you what you need, regardless of what you want. But if you're in a party setting, what else can you do but then enjoy the party?
That's true. And if you're just, if you're trying to use it for distraction, kind of like what you're saying, that's really what it's going to do for you.
Yeah.
I guess I've tried to use it for distraction before, and it was just like, nope.
Yeah.
You're looking inward right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna figure your shit out.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, oh, okay, this is more so a medicine to me than it is a recreational drug.
Yeah.
But even in terms of like heavy drugs like heroin, I fundamentally question why we treat any sort of drug use as criminal.
Yeah.
When I think at its worst, it should always be a health concern, a health problem. Especially where I think addiction is it's an interesting phenomenon in someone's life, because what I've started to realize that addiction is for somebody is there's this substance that kind of is God to them. They're like, I cannot function in reality without this substance, and I will put it above all other things and all other people. And I think that's why we're starting to find out that the cure for addiction is connection. And so they're really trying to put people in communities where you can say, hey, I woke up today and I had this looming dread of just being alive, and all I wanted to do was reach for that bottle or reach for the heroin. And instead you just have someone there who's supporting you and saying like, we've got this, we're in this together, we can find different ways to do this that's not going to destroy your body, your mind, and your relationships, right?
True. I think the criminal aspect comes in when you get sober people selling it to vulnerable people.
Yeah.
That's criminal.
So that's kind of, I agree. It's like the commercialization of it, right? And that's kind of where I was really uncomfortable with the way the weed industry, when it got legalized, it was like, hey, we're going to keep all the people that we imprisoned for this in jail with like life sentences and shit. But now we've got these like rich white people pushing it down people's throats. Like, you want weed, you want more weed, you want more weed. So I think that's very accurate to say that that's where the problem lies, the criminal problem lies.
Yeah.
And but yet as a society, we've just been punishing and criminalizing those who are using it rather than really those who are pushing it, I guess.
Yeah, that's so true. I know. Well, and I feel like people get all tripped up about like, oh, I'm going to get caught with drugs. When really, like, the feds don't give a shit if you have weed in your car.
Unless they're trying to get you on something bigger, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a reason to detain you for something bigger. But if you're like generally a good person and you haven't done anything, maybe you had a speeding ticket and they find weed in your car, they're like, okay, well, this dude seems pretty chill.
I've heard at this point it's more of a nuisance for them to try and prosecute it.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. So it's like, look, dude, just quit being an asshole.
Yeah, quit being an asshole. Just stop making my job harder and go away.
I'm glad it's starting to turn that way. I think that's why I feel comfortable talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah.
And why I feel comfortable being more open about it now, because like, I still know so many people who are like, yeah, these substances have saved my life, but I'm still horrified of using them in public because it could ruin my life.
True.
And I think we're all just kind of, as a social mind, kind of moving away from that. I think that's a really good thing.
Any medicine should be taken mindfully. Even ibuprofen. Like, you don't want to just take it every day because you're worried you might get hurt. You want to take it when you start to feel something, so that you can enjoy your day. Like any drug your doctor prescribes should be mindful. You don't want to like, oh, let me get prescribed Ritalin because I should. You want it to actually benefit you, and that way you can appreciate the things that you're taking, so you can have a more valuable existence.
I like that. I think that key word of being mindful is so important, because people really don't do that. They're just like, okay, I've got this little schedule on the bottle that I need to follow, and I'll just take it. And it's like, well, actually, And I think that sort of disconnects people from their own feelings of their own body. And they're sort of like, I have to rely on this bottle and my doctor's orders in order to know how I'm feeling. And I think the two have to work together. They have to play together. And being able to be mindful about that is super important.
Well, and I think doctors get really, especially old school doctors, they get really caught up in the textbook aspect. They're like, well, this is what you have, so this is what you need. And they don't listen to their patients. I've seen so many patients that come in switching doctors. This is my second opinion because my doctor's an ass. It happens all the time because doctors don't like to listen to what people are saying about their bodies because they went to school, they got a degree, they know more about your body than you know about your body.
Yep.
And in some way that's true. They know the physiology, the physics, the biology, they know it, but you know how you feel.
Yes.
And if you feel like taking this medication is making you numb, then you need to find something else. Just because it's not making you want to kill yourself every day doesn't mean it's not killing you slowly.
Yeah. I'm really happy you're in the medical field then. We need so many more people that are minded like that, because I kind of understand where these old school doctors are coming from, because in the sense they're like, look, I have studied trends of human bodies. But that's the problem, is that they're studying trends. They're not looking at the individual points that create those trends.
Yeah.
And so I think kind of what you're saying, where if they're actually paying more attention, like, okay, so this is your experience, this is what you're feeling, then they can appreciate that more and heal people better.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that kind of brings me to my next point, because like one of the things I wanted to ask you is, I see in science and medicine this need to use empiricism or like all this overarching data or overarching knowledge to sort of impose that on people's lives, and by doing so they ignore people's like subjective experience and subjective beliefs and their philosophy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I wanted to ask you, where does science and philosophy intersect in your life? Where is it that you can see the trends, understand what is happening, but also get down to the nitty gritty and understand, like, this is what's personally happening, this is how I personally feel about it? Where do those intersect, I guess?
Yeah. Well, it's different for medicine and for me personally.
Yeah.
I mean, medicine, even in charts, we have a subjective and an objective portion in the chart.
Okay.
So you say this person has a fever, and then they say, how do you feel? Do you feel hot?
Okay.
And then you put that in the chart. So that's kind of cool how we've slowly started like actually putting people's, because it actually just gives you more data.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's good, right?
Honestly, like, it's all about the data. Who cares how this person's really feeling? It gives us more data of how they're responding to this thing.
Okay.
So that's how medicine views like the subjective objective aspect of that. But me personally, with science and philosophy, I think they simultaneously help each other and cancel each other out at the same time. Like, science has given us numbers, and we love our numbers.
Yeah, we do.
We love them because they're so
reliable.
They feel so concrete.
Yeah, they do.
They feel so like, well, prove
numbers
it wrong.
don't
prove
lie,
it wrong.
right?
I dare you. But they're based off of assumptions that we've made a long time ago.
That is such a good point.
So,
people really forget that.
I think science likes to claim that they know everything. But it's really just a nice story to make us feel better about what we know nothing about.
Yeah.
So philosophy comes into the aspect of, well, how do you feel about what we know so far? And I think the one quote that I always rely on is, the more you learn, the less you know.
Oh, yeah.
So science is cool. It's interesting. It's intriguing. It makes my mind grow. It makes me feel excited.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I have to know that science is also bullshit.
Yeah. it's constructed from a very limited understanding.
Exactly.
No matter what we tell ourselves.
And it is concrete for our reality on this earth, but that's the extent of it.
Yeah, for real.
The fact that we apply our assumptions to the universe is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Because it has you could travel to a different galaxy and experience completely different laws of physics.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. Science,
but if you can calculate those laws of physics...
But by God, bring the numbers back and it's solid.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think that is such an important thing that we don't realize. You know, we've seen what cool things science can do, like creating a fucking phone and like transporting us across the world, the internet. Like, we've seen these amazing things, but it's so important to realize that it's just based on these assumptions that we've all agreed on.
Exactly.
We're all just like, oh yeah, we know that, you know, this is this and this is this. because we've built other assumptions off of that.
Right.
And
because it works.
Yeah, because it works.
It works, so why
we haven't
worry
seen
about
anything
it?
to the contrary yet.
Right.
I love that, because kind of like I was saying, when I left Mormonism, I had this full swing to just like science is God, essentially.
Yeah.
And then and now I'm kind of having a swing back where I'm almost like hesitant of science. I'm like, but I don't want to do that, because I can see how science is valuable to us.
Yeah.
And what it has built for us. I'm just wondering what kind of things we can do to actually incorporate philosophy into our use of science, so that we're still maintaining an open mind. And so I'm really happy to hear you say that.
Well, I just think people use science as an answer when really it's a tool.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Both are. Science, philosophy, physics, like art, everything is a tool for existence. It's not the answer to like what happens after we die.
I like that, because we really do try to co-opt that and say like, yep, see, we were able to explain this much, so obviously we know everything.
Yeah.
But it really is just a tool for expanding further and further.
Yeah.
And that, just like your quote, where the more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting to me that that's kind of what science is doing. Is it's slowly pulling apart at the tapestry of reality, and we keep thinking that we'll find the end of it, but really we're just finding more and more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I kind of, and that's what makes me love it, but also not deify it.
Well, it's interesting.
Like, it is.
It's interesting to pull the thread.
It's so fascinating.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's cool. It engages your mind. It helps you grow. It's cool.
And it helps
but
us
should we
connect with
put
people, too.
all of our, should we rely so heavily on it? I mean, I don't
Probably
know.
not.
For our entire existence and our idea of where we go after this, I don't think so.
I like that. And I think it's sort of like a cultural response to just religion trying to do that. And so I think it's good that at least you and I understand that.
Fuck everyone else.
Yeah. So I guess it's like, how do we really do that as a species? Because I think we keep trying to build overarching systems that are like, this is the way we all have to do this. And when kind of on an individual level, I think all of us really know, like, well, it doesn't have all the answers.
Yeah,
like, we
it's
all just
true.
got to try and figure it out.
It's true. Well, and it's interesting when like scientists like Einstein and Hawking's, you know, how they're like considered at the top of the science league.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like they're our quarterback
The big boys.
in the final minutes of the football game. You know what I mean? But even they disagreed on the existence of humanity. Hawkins was an atheist and Einstein believed in God.
Oh.
And so it just goes to show you that no matter how much science you unravel, you'll still never get to the bottom of the answer.
I like that.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
That's actually something that I kind of mentioned earlier, is like, there are things that just can't be known.
Yeah.
And I think people who are like religiously following science think, oh no, like eventually we'll know everything through science.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that being a possibility. In fact, there was a podcast with Russell Brand where he had Neil deGrasse Tyson on it.
Oh, hell
And he
yeah.
asked him, he's like, do you think there's anything that is unknowable? He was like, no.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we'll get to a point with science where we'll know everything.
Neil deGrasse Tyson's job is to sell science.
Yes.
He's not a scientist, he sells science.
Okay. That is straight up exactly what it is. It's cool because he makes it accessible for people who just want to get into science, but it's exactly it.
Yeah.
He's a salesman for science. That's really, that's accurate. Because
He's the Pope of science.
Yes. Oh God. Hopefully not like. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, that's something that's been more interesting to me lately, is understanding what might be considered unknowable.
Yeah. Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. For me personally, I think it's the experience of consciousness. Because the only experience of consciousness that we can actually know, at least from an individual sense, is our own consciousness, right? But science wants to try and say, no, we can explain consciousness. We can understand it like propositionally. We can understand someone else's conscious experience through empiricism and through empirical means, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is inherently impossible. And what I think is it kind of brings them to the forefront. There's this thing called the hard problem of consciousness.
Okay.
Have you heard of that before?
Is that like where consciousness sits inside of you, or like just solving consciousness?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
It's science trying to explain consciousness, but they don't have anything concrete yet. And so most scientists try to just like brush it off. They're like, that's something like neurology and psychology will figure out at some point.
Well, it's because scientists love their numbers, and you can't quantify something you can't measure.
Oh, exactly.
And you can't measure consciousness. That's the one thing we know, given the tools we have now.
Yeah.
But what I like to think about is, what if we could quantify consciousness?
Oh, this
like,
is
what
interesting.
If technology went somehow, we discovered some new process to where you could measure energy in a way we never have before.
So, for one thing, we're kind of, from a very basic and rudimentary sense, we're actually on the cusp of that with Elon Musk's neural net, right? Because the idea is that we're going to be plugging a chip from our brain into the internet. So then they can collect data on every single neurological process in the brain. So to them, they think they're on the cusp of measuring and replicating consciousness.
Yeah.
And I guess that actually brings us to kind of AI and simulation theory.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think simulation theory is bullshit. I really like to think about it. It's really fun to think about.
I think so too.
I wouldn't say that that's what's happening. It could be.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
all possibilities are possible.
Yeah, exactly.
But if simulation theory was a thing, we're so still insignificant in the matter. If someone were able to create infinite universes given the technology, do you think they'd still give a shit about us?
No.
Personally?
No. They got
We're
bigger things on their
probably
plate.
like in a vial in someone's science cupboard, like
Yes.
in elementary school.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So if simulation theory is true, cool.
That is so important, because I've actually I was on Reddit, and some guy, like, it was in the consciousness subreddit, and this guy was like freaking out. He's like, guys, I had a dream that I'm in a simulation. It was so vivid, guys. I'm like freaking out.
That's called
like,
a vision, and it's actually scripture.
Oh shit! I didn't realize I was dealing with fucking Muhammad there. Oh damn.
Yeah, it's the new Jesus Christ.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
Well, shit. I shouldn't have talked him down. Yeah, dude, you gotta keep coming. But it was funny, because at some point I'm like, dude, for one thing, you have to sit and think, what are you freaking out about?
Yeah.
What can you do about it? Let's say all of it is real.
Yeah.
What are you going to do now? You're going to probably start some cult that's like, I know everything. Give me power.
Yeah.
And
suck my dick.
Exactly. That's the key. That's the key right there. So I think that's important to know that simulation theory, it's interesting, but it probably doesn't fucking matter.
No, and it's fun to talk about. It's fun to theorize about, like, oh, what if? What ifs are great. I love them.
Yeah.
They're really entertaining, but
they don't really get us anywhere. They're not
true.
Creating anything concrete for us in any way.
We might make a lot of money making a simulation religion.
Actually, let's go for it then. Because that's all that matters to me.
Because if we have to live in capitalism, let's utilize it.
Yes, exactly. Might as well. What can I do about
bask in the chaos.
I love that. But kind of bringing back to at least artificial intelligence and trying to, I guess, create consciousness through the neural net. I mean, have you even heard about kind of what Elon Musk is trying to do with that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of, it's funny because he's just sort of like, I want to see if I can do it, let's fucking do it, right?
Let's see if you can do it.
But I had a really interesting conversation with my friend about this, because we were like, oh, is that going to create human consciousness? But what we sort of led to is that it actually creates a new type of consciousness that is now becoming unmeasurable from its own right. Mostly because, like, human consciousness, as we kind of understand it, if we try to fumble around with the idea, is going to have to, for one thing, consist on the idea that we know we're going to die. Yeah. But if you're able to, like, collect all the data on our neurological processes, which, I mean, I might even question whether that is consciousness. Yeah. But if we're going to collect all this data on our neurological processes and then replicate it into a type of being that may not die, or at least doesn't have to worry about death.
Doesn't lose its consciousness.
Yeah, it doesn't lose its consciousness.
That's what we consider death, I guess.
Yeah, right? That's actually a tangent.
My bad.
No, you're good, because I want to go there. Yeah. But I guess what I was trying to say is it will create a new type of consciousness, because they're fundamentally like, okay, I am now existing as what? Simply a replicated Nathan Jones that no longer has to worry about eating, sleeping, drinking, stuff like that. But what was kind of interesting, oh my God, take me back to what you were going to say, or what you said, because I
loss of consciousness is death.
Yes. Okay. So when I was tripping with my cousin on mushrooms, one of the things he kept saying is, he's like, is death an illusion?
Ooh.
Yeah. He's
like
what is dying?
Yeah.
He's like, what, like, I don't understand, why is me losing this sense of self dying? And I thought that was so profound.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think
important.
of that too when I trip.
Yeah.
Like, especially with DMT being our gateway to the next life.
Have you done DMT?
No, I just have heard that that's what you trip on when you die. And my roommate and I were talking last night, actually. We were getting super high on weed.
Hell yeah.
And we were thinking, like, the best way to die would be an overdose on something, because you're tripping, and then suddenly DMT kicks in.
And you just shoot off
the transition
the stars.
is just, like, seamless.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
you exist forever in that moment, even if it ends right there. Like, as
Ideally.
far as you would know and your conscious would know, you would stop existing in that moment of the height of your DMT trip.
Oh.
If what's after this is a dirt nap.
A dirt nap?
Then that's
I love that.
Then that's what you would
I think that's interesting,
as.
because you have to wonder what it is that is experiencing that then at that point. Because is it you?
Yeah.
And you have to wonder what the self is. Have you ever reached a point on psychedelics where you lost your sense of self?
Bro. Yes.
Did you? Yes.
It was like scary, but really informative. It was interesting.
It's absolutely amazing, because, I mean, for one thing, we live in an individualist culture, and so we're kind of curated around this idea that this self that we think of that's existing right now is everything, right? And being able to have an experience that lets you just turn that off and be like, oh, whoa, you are so much bigger than this single body right here.
Dude. It's taking me back.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's all I want to do.
It's really one of the best moments. It really is. It's like so freeing, and it's so peaceful.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're like, it doesn't matter what's after this, because sense of self is stupid.
Yeah, it is. It's so fleeting. It's just like it's just like a maladaptive trait trying to help this body try to make sure it doesn't fucking die.
Well, it's organizing. It's just quantifying reality.
In order to just maintain itself, I guess.
Yeah, in order to function.
But I think it's really important that people understand why that is so freeing and like healthy, especially in coping with death. A lot of people will actually administer psychedelics specifically to help like people who are either about to die or have dealt with people that have died. And I think it's for that same reason, because they're able to just see like, oh, like this self is not everything, and this pain I feel is an experience. It's not everything. Right. And I think that's super valuable.
It really is. It really is. And something that trips me out is specifically with death. I think death is really trippy for a lot of people, because it's happened to trillions of people and trillions of billions of organisms, yet we know nothing about it.
Because we're terrified of it.
Not only that, you can't measure it.
Yeah,
We don't know where they go.
So
where the fuck do they go?
We're just like, okay, this is what a being looks like, and it stopped doing that. That's death. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I actually, when I did shrooms and I lost my sense of self, I actually got really scared of death. I got terrified, because I'm like, well, shit, man, like, I will never know.
Yeah.
But something that brought me a lot of peace was the fact that if death was scary, people would scream.
Oh, I actually like that. It's poetic.
Yeah, like it would be terror, and you would see terror in people's eyes as they're dying.
Yeah.
When really, like, I don't know if you've seen people die, but when they die, they're actually very calm.
Really?
And very peaceful. And they kind of just, depending on how they die, obviously. If your legs are crushed, you're going to be scared.
Yeah, that'd be fucking terrible.
Right, but like cancer, for instance. You're in a hospice, you're on a morphine drip, and you're just slipping away. It's very peaceful. And they talk about it.
That's awesome.
Like, because they're slowly slipping. Oh, yeah, hey, my cousin's here to come get me. Like, they say weird shit. And I don't know if it's a slow drip from the DMT kicking in a week before you die. I don't know.
I think that's so fascinating.
It made me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's not going to be scary. And I think you'll accept it when it comes.
I think that's so cool. And I think, for one thing, what my cousin and I realized on that one trip is we were like, you know, we sort of see this self that exists or is alive, that we die once our conscious awareness of ourself turns off.
Yeah.
But after that happens, all of the cells that compose that and created that experience and made it possible are going to just disintegrate and return back to the universe.
Yeah.
And so like we're kind of inherent within all of those pieces that are going back into the universe. And it kind of made me think of what we were talking about in the car. Seeing that bloated deer.
Yeah.
And like how the bacteria was eating it.
Yeah.
That was itself. It was, I guess, in a way, still alive.
Yeah.
Like its
for
cells
sure.
and its organisms were still like raging against the dying light.
The symbiotic relationship was still actually thriving more than it probably had ever thrived.
Yeah.
It's
not getting nutrition out here.
Yeah, it's suddenly the feast. The bacteria are like, holy shit, why haven't we done this sooner?
Oh, damn. Is that what we're doing right now? Just keeping our cells at bay from eating us alive?
Well, and what's interesting is like flies will come by, they'll lay their eggs, the eggs will eat the bacteria live on forever, like in the worms, in the fly. It's fucking crazy.
I love that. And so it's like, do we ever really die?
We might not.
Or are we just we're just having a phase shift?
Yeah,
we're recycled.
I like to think that my energy, I like to think consciousness is like a bulk of energy. And this is like a joke that makes me feel better about death. But like maybe when you die, your energy is like recycled into someone's fart.
Yeah.
Like it's just meaningless. It's just energy.
And there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
You're going to end up as someone's fart whether you like it or not.
It might be the greatest roller coaster of your life.
Honestly, you could be the fart of like an emperor.
Oh my God, Elon Musk's fart.
Dude! Like, honestly, that's really all I want to be.
Hell yeah. If that's what I amount to, then so be it.
Oh, that's hilarious. I think, I like that. Because what I think conscious energy is, or conscious energy of consciousness is actually just a fixated or a localized point of experience, right?
Yeah.
So with that, I guess let me backtrack. Because we are just very complex fixated points of experience. We have vision, we have smell, we have taste, we have hearing and touch, and we even have more intricate senses even than that, especially with the way that our cognition works and everything. So we are just very complex. But a lot of people, especially like science, believes that consciousness comes from the brain, that it is generated in the brain. But what I think is happening is the brain is more like a radio or a transceiver, and it is receiving conscious input, and then processing it through a subjective experience.
Yeah.
And so I kind of think that is inherent within all aspects of this universe.
Yeah.
That everything is just a point of conscious attention. And we're just at a very specific range, and we're experiencing it from that range.
Yeah.
And I think what's cool about that is just that's kind of what helps me overcome any fear of death, because it's like my consciousness will just shift. It'll degrade and break down into maybe the cells of my own bacteria, just the organisms within me, and rather than those cells having a stupid narrative about whether Sally liked my dress or not, it's going to be like, okay, I gotta survive, it's time to eat, it's time to and then it's just a whole new experience of reality. And like honestly, I think that's what God is it's just all of those subjective experiences of the universe all happening at once. And so we are God in that sense, that we are receiving that input and experiencing ourselves through a subjective lens.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool because, for one thing, it's kind of hard to turn that into like a totalitarian like regime, because it's like, oh, actually your opinion is just as valid as mine.
Yeah.
But also it helps us, I think, conquer death and the fear of death.
Yeah.
And sort of embrace it and see it as very valuable to us.
Well, and it's interesting how you say like perceiving input. Because studying biology, I've had to learn a lot about animals, and how they perceive their input. And it's really fucking cool. Yeah. Because we think we're special. We think we're special because we've made our reality into something we find complex. When an ant looks at a building and sees it the same as a tree. Yeah. Like,
I like that.
Other animals have colonies that are super complex, and just because we don't understand how they talk to each other doesn't mean that they're equally intelligent and equally
unintelligent,
worried about death. How do we know? Maybe their death, maybe they do know how we die.
Yeah. Oh, that would be
like,
interesting.
The fact of intelligent beings is stupid to me because we quantified it ourselves. So of course we're going to win in that category.
We're like, okay, so we're clearly intelligent.
Yeah, we're clearly the smartest.
Everyone else is dumb.
I made the chart. And biology was cool because it made me realize that intelligence is actually everywhere. The oldest tree in the world is 5,000 years old. Over 5,000 years old.
Is it in the old growth forest in Oregon?
It's in California. Northern California.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's like a bristlecone pine. Anyways,
okay.
Yeah, it's cool. But I feel like that's its own form of intelligence, is conquering time.
Ooh, I like that.
Because that's like our biggest thing that we're trying to overcome is time. Well, we degrade so quickly. What do we do? Trees have mastered it. They get left the fuck alone. Like, they have symbiotic relationships with tons of different things, and then you can live 5,000 years. Like, imagine the wisdom coming from that.
I really like thinking about that sometimes. Just like the point of reference that tree must have in some aspect is just like, because 5,000 years to it is a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's the same as it is for us, you
right.
know? So it's just kind of like dilated, but also like they're stuck in one place. And that was something there's this journalist, Michael Pollan, who he's wrote a lot of books on like plants and specifically lately how they like alter our minds. So we started getting into psychedelics and things like that. But one of the things he was talking about is the intelligence of plants. And it's kind of what you're talking about, where since it had to be immobile and just standing in that one place, it had to develop very, very specific intelligences that we just don't think of as intelligence.
Yeah.
Like being able to communicate with other trees in a forest.
Right.
Like, and that's kind of what's cool about mushrooms too, is they create this mycelial network that actually helps the trees talk to each other.
Right.
And it was just super cool to think of it that way, because you can see how there are different types of intelligences that we just don't understand and that we can actually be fascinated by and learn a lot from.
It's really cool. Well, in Avatar, they mentioned that, how they're studying the networks of trees.
Yes.
Like, what a dumb... the movie's actually cool, but, like, what a simple idea. It was portrayed very simply, but the concept is really deep. And it was cool, because, like, this whole alien civilization relied on the trees.
Yes.
Because that was their intelligence. It was so cool.
I think it's really cool, too, because they had to see themselves as a part of that tree.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't fully go like, oh, I am that tree. Like, obviously I'm separate and relying upon it. But like, there was just a deep connection in nature through that. And I guess that's something I feel like we've really lost as a society and as a culture. And I think there's something super valuable in having it.
Oh, for sure.
Because by being able to see what you're wholly relying upon, it's easier for us not to destroy it.
Oh, true. Yeah, if you look at each tree as like a grandpa, then you're like, well, shoot, I can't cut that down.
Yeah. And I think also, like, did you ever, I don't know, when I was a kid, since I didn't grow up on a farm, or I didn't like have any, like, I was a suburban kid, right? So I literally thought that food came from a grocery store, you know?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wait, did you know, like, you didn't know meat was from animals?
No.
Oh, okay.
Like, obviously, I learned that maybe, like, I don't know. Maybe
at some point.
Like, some point, I know that now. But
I hope so.
Like, there's just... no, it's not me. But, I see how that created such a very simple disconnection for me. Because I was able to say, like, oh, it's okay, you know, like, to clear away trees to make houses because I can, you know... I can get my food from here. Those two aren't connected to me.
Yeah.
But when you started to see, but I think when we can see, like, oh, we actually, all of the food we get, all of that cultivation is actually coming from nature, then we can actually say, oh, we have to protect it.
Oh, for sure. Because only synthetic stuff will only take us so far.
Oh, yeah.
And synthetic stuff, everything comes back to nature, even our synthetic stuff. All the chemicals we get,
right?
Everything we get comes from nature. So if we destroy it, then we're fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Then suddenly we have to become cavemen again. And that's
and
mass
start all
extinction
over.
number 6.
Man, we already gone through 5 extinctions?
5 mass extinctions.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Where I think I forget the percentage, but I think it's over 45% of species get extinct in one event.
Oh, okay.
And we're actually currently in the 6th mass extinction.
Ooh.
Humans have created an environment that has made a substantial percentage of species go extinct. And so it's a slow burn instead of a huge explosion, but it's still considered the 6th mass extinction is human existence.
Yeah, we're annihilating habitat.
And it's not just modern humans. Ever since humans like became intelligent beings, theoretically, 10,000 years ago, we've just seen a slow decline and I don't see it as a decline. I see it as like just a shift into a different kind of living. But
I think that's important to remember, because we can't get too caught up. And I think it's weird when people are like, humans are evil, like they're destroying the planet and killing everybody. It's like we're just trying to exist, and we're thinking we're becoming more efficient at it. And
we're just a virus that wants to spread.
In a way, we really are, because we are just trying to, consume resources and grow our populace. And I think we're getting to the point though that we can actually transcend that. And maybe
create a symbiotic relationship.
Yes.
Make it more symbiotic than parasitic.
Yeah.
Because we are a parasite right now.
We are.
We're just leeching resources without replenishing anything.
And I think we're definitely capable of changing it, especially when there's people with mass amounts of wealth and resources that could easily be redistributed to help people.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. But, there was a point I wanted to get to. It's okay, though.
It's hot.
It is hot. It is
and my
getting
hair is
toasty.
like drying, so it's humid around my head.
It's just getting toasty. Well, I have just a couple more questions.
Okay,
and then we can probably call it.
Sounds good.
So I did want to get to, maybe this is a good segue, because I did want to get to where you see biology taking humanity in the future. Like, what do you think biology's vision is for humanity?
I think biology only exists if humans exist. Because we're the only ones that actually care about it.
Yeah, and are observing it.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing as pulling a thread. We'll never get to the bottom of biology. It's not a solvable ology. Because there's always going to be questions, especially with consciousness. That's, I feel, very biological aspect, And so I think maybe we'll be able to achieve immortality.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, maybe we'll be able to save all the species. Maybe we'll be able to
build utopia,
become symbiotic, world peace, whatever. Who knows? But realistically, I don't think any of that's possible. And biology is kind of... in the hierarchy of sciences, it's rather low.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Physics, mathematics, and engineering tend to be really high up there because that's what is considered human growth.
Yeah, it can be commercialized for one thing.
And biology is again coming back to nature that we're destroying.
Yeah.
So people don't really like to learn about biology, and I don't know. I think if name one brilliant scientist who's the Elon Musk of biology.
I feel like I should know this.
None of us do. That's the problem. Even I'm a biologist and I don't even know our modern day biologist man. I'm just saying it's not a forefront science. And so I don't see huge advancements coming from discovering biology.
Okay.
If anything, it would just be more we have to learn in school.
Why am I having to take this general ed?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about biology.
For real. But medicine is really the most applicable aspect of it.
That makes sense.
So immortality probably is the farthest we could get with biology.
Isn't that kind of to me, that sounds so dystopian when it's I guess what we'll really do is just find a way to keep humans alive so we can keep churning them through a system.
So we can be more miserable for longer.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually curious how you feel about that, because, in the medical field, I know that there's sort of this, it's sort of like the doctors, I wish I could describe this better. It's sort of the fact they have to help people.
Oh, the Hippocratic Oath.
That's what it is. Thank you.
The Hippocratic Oath, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean... the idea that, we kind of will create palliative care, but we won't actually, help someone die.
Right.
So I kind of want to know what you think about that and where you stand on that.
Yeah. It's really interesting because recently I had watched a documentary about old age for a class, and a lot of the old people in there were like, dude, once you've been on this earth for 90 years, you're kind of done.
Yeah.
The experiences are dried up. Things get less exciting. You're ready to find out what's next.
Yeah.
And I think palliative care is a wish of the living. The living feel
really
guilty because they want to live, and so they want them to live.
That makes sense.
Instead of, again, coming back to asking the person, well, how do you feel about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have people who are 102 years old. They can't walk. They get their diaper changed every day. They have a feeding tube down their nose.
Oh my God.
Like, we go to ridiculous lengths to give someone their basic needs without realizing their higher needs.
Yeah.
Like,
because that's not life.
No, it's not. And I like how recently maybe in the past 20 years or so, we've been really transitioning into quality of life instead of life.
That's good.
And palliative care has really looked at quality of life. Same with oncology, cancer studies. They actually offer patients now, instead of like, well, we're going to do radiation and chemo. They say, well, here's an option. You can do radiation and chemo and get quality of life years. They actually calculate, instead of living years, they calculate these are how many years you're going to have that are quality, and then you're going to have a year of wasting away and dying.
Okay. I think that's such an important step,
It
though.
really is.
The fact that they're actually taking that into consideration instead of just like, we need to extend the life of this like crumbling body as much as possible. It's just cruel.
Without realizing like how the person feels about it, because it's illegal to technically help them die.
Oh, God. And I understand the slippery slope of like we can just kill whoever we want.
Doctor of death.
But I think it's good that we're taking steps to understand that there is much more than just a mechanical understanding of what life is.
Exactly.
And that actually kind of reminds me of something we talked about in the chat on your post was kind of what we consider to be life and what we consider to be death.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because I think it's, we're able to say like, oh, life is this, but we only understand that through our own subjective lens, right?
Right.
And I remember from really basic biology, like, what was it, like the 6 tenets of like what makes something alive?
Oh,
had
yeah.
to do with like, it's like being able to reproduce.
So it's being able to reproduce, it's being able to harvest resources, being able to react to your surroundings. Those are the 3 I remember. I think there's 4.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
but essentially that's the baseline. And it's like, those make sense because of all of the schemas we've created that we say, this is life. Okay, what's connecting all of them? These 4 tenets.
Right.
But I think it was really cool that you were able to understand like, oh yeah, that can't just, like, we don't even know what life is or what death is. So, or what non-life is, I guess. And so,
a rock.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that it's really important that we are starting to question those things more so that we can actually get more out of what we understand as life.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of like palliative care for people that are dying.
Oh, for sure. Well, and it's funny because the more I learn about biology, the more ridiculous I think it is, but I still love it.
Yeah.
Like, because it is the study of living things. And so obviously you have to follow the tenets of life to understand what we consider living and why it lives. But like, something I thought of recently was, we don't know what our universe is. For all we know, we could be a quark on an electron.
Yeah.
And we could be a rock. Like, we just don't know.
I love that.
And so living to me is so arbitrary because, again, we're the one who made the spreadsheet. So, of course, we're going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just funny how we keep making these structures to fall under, and then we categorize our reality into them, and we're always at the top. We're always at the top because we think we're special.
It's ego.
And life is arbitrary because it's a word we made up, and we gave it a meaning, and the fact that we gave it meaning means nothing.
Yeah. I totally understand that, and I think it's really good that you recognize that, because it's really I think it's really important that I think we already kind of covered this, but the idea that we just know where these specific scientific disciplines are limited and where we know what they can achieve based on the specific agreements that we already made with them, based on the assumptions that we already made with them. Because, we could just find out that we are just a quark on a rock or something.
We really could. Like, seriously, we could be this cell inside of someone bigger.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because I've talked with people and I'm like, oh, what do you think God is? And they're like, well, I don't think it's some like big scary man in the sky. And it's like, I mean, maybe we are just some cell inside of like this big behemoth that is God, but or what we might think of as a God. But I think that's just like more about the complexity of the overall universe than it is like, oh, we need to worship and like crave this thing.
Oh God, what do you want me to do today?
He's like, I don't know. You are literally a cell in my pants.
Yeah, he's like, well, I just need you to process this potassium. Thanks.
That is your
that would
function.
Be cool. Yeah. Have you watched Rick and Morty at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Were you just thinking about the butter dish thing? or the robot with the butter dish?
Oh no, but
Okay,
I was thinking about his battery for his car.
Oh yes.
And the miniverse and the
yes.
and how their entire existence is to create energy to
power his car. And then they built another civilization.
They built an even tinier universe to power their tiny universe.
Oh, it's turtles all the way down.
Yeah,
and I love it.
I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and for all we know.
All we know, why does it matter? I
think that's so. It's fun because I like to play with these concepts and have this like little mental gymnastics. Like, oh, what if? And I've talked with people who will get excited about that and be like, oh, maybe that is what it is. And it's fun, but then, at the end of the day, you're like, well, we still got to go to work tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. I know. We still got shit to do, bills to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to live in the society we created. And ultimately, nothing matters, and that brings me peace.
Awesome. That's fair. I guess to finish this out, the reason I made this podcast is because I'm wholly unhappy with the systems and the society that we've created, because I really think that it's not benefiting anyone but a small hegemony of people that are curating this system and society for us. And part of me is tired of thinking that the only way that we can change the world is through destruction. And that's why I think a kindness rebellion is sort of required, because I think we need to stop saying my way of the world is more important and I need to destroy everything and impose that on everything. But I want to help us all build a new world together that we actually believe will benefit everyone.
Yeah.
So I want to know what you think a vision for humanity could be. Something that we can all rally behind, something that you could rally behind to help us improve the world.
I think one thing that I've learned working in a large hospital, I've encountered a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the thing that I've learned is people are so stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the pandemic when people were scared, I had a patient come in and say, "Why is everybody wearing masks?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Because obviously you must know what's going on.
No, they were in an underground bunker for the last 3 years.
I'm not kidding. They legit had no idea what was going on. They're like, "What do you mean a virus?" Like they had no idea. And those people are everywhere. So for me, the thought of building an ideal, is flawed because everybody wants something different.
Yeah.
So corralling these cats to something productive seems exhausting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's worth it for me personally. I find that my ideal humanity is what's happening right now because I can't change it.
Yeah.
And I think I can change myself to be better for people around me, spreading love, telling people I love them, doing favors for people when they need it. I think just that's why I wore my love shirt today, because that's the only currency of the universe is love.
Awesome.
It's the only thing that matters. So I don't think building anything is going to help. I think going back to the basic level of humanity of love is the only thing that's going to help us do anything at all. It's
funny because I hear what you're saying, in that we don't really need to build systems around that. But I kind of I wholly agree, because our society and our culture now thinks of love as a childish thing.
Yeah.
Something that we just should push off and not really pay attention to or value at all, really. It's something personal that you should deal with, and I agree with that, but it's also something that we should learn how to embody as a culture, I think. And I think you're right. It's too difficult to try and corral people into a system that I think is ideal,
right,
but that maybe most people don't.
Exactly.
So kind of what I'm hearing from that, though, is we need to allow more freedom. We need to allow more freedom to love, more freedom to create and have kindness and compassion.
Right.
Would you say that that's kind of what you feel about that?
Yeah. I think... and ultimately, this sounds kind of archaic, but if love is the only thing that matters, then rules don't exist at all.
Yeah, they don't.
Because technically, if you love someone and they want to go abort their baby, then that's okay.
Yeah.
And if you love your baby and you don't want to abort it, then that's okay.
Yeah.
Because love transcends laws, and love transcends our reality, really.
It does.
It's just being okay with what it is because you care for that person's existence more than your own.
I think that's important. And like, if that can just be the foundation for humanity, if that's just what we can all agree on and actually prioritize, I think we can change the world.
Oh, for sure. That's why I wish everybody would just tell someone every day that they love them, because it's something we don't hear enough.
Oh yeah.
And everybody craves it. The one thing I've learned, like seriously, in school is that every single person craves love in some capacity.
Of course.
That's what happiness is receiving love and validation from other people, because it makes you feel like you matter. Yeah. In a world where the odds are against you mattering.
And also just giving that love too. The other day, Alyssa and I were like stoned off our asses, but we were talking about my mom. Yeah. And I was just like, God,
I love your mom.
I know.
I love your mom.
I love my mom. She's so good. So I called her and I told her, I'm like, Mom, you're amazing. You've taught me how to love people unconditionally and how to just like understand that everyone's in need and everyone just needs love. And she was just crying. She's just like, I needed that today.
Your mom taught me how to love strangers unconditionally.
I love that. I love that.
And I've only interacted with her twice, maybe.
That's what I was about to say. Oh, it's so powerful.
Like, she's really good at that. And I feel like my parents have also really taught me how to love unconditionally the people that are close to you, because you want to control the people close to you. Yeah. But my parents have taught me about the people, kind of letting them live. But your mom taught me how to love everybody.
Yeah. I love that.
Which is crazy. I'll never forget your mom, ever.
That makes me so happy. I'm sure that'll make her very happy too, because that's just so her.
She might not even remember me.
Probably.
Like, God, it's been
years.
7, 8, 9. Oh my God, has it been 12 years?
Maybe.
Yes, I was 12.
Were you really?
I was 12 when I met your mom. It's been 12
like 12 or 13 years.
Holy shit, and I've seen her twice, and she still has that impression on me. Isn't that crazy?
I love that. that is who my mom is. Yeah. And, man, if you're watching this, I love you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
We love you.
Cool.
That's so great. Thanks, parents.
Yeah. I think that might be a good place to end it.
Yeah, I like that.
Sweet.
That's sweet.
Thank you so much, Mariah.
Oh, that was fun.
This was hella fun.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
I'm dying of the
heat. And it is
getting
toasty.
Yeah.
It is getting very toasty right now.
Getting humid. That's for... Oh, shit. I forgot it was under my...